A car accident left me unconscious. When I opened my eyes again, a man in a dragon robe was sitting by the bed, staring at me with a deep gaze. The system said, "Complete the task, and you'll be rewarded with 100 million. I asked, "What task?" The system said, "Death. Death in this world. Isn't that simple?" Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. I rolled out of bed, ignoring the maid's attempts to stop me, and searched around. "Where's the knife?" the Emperor asked. "Why are you looking for a knife?" I said. "Kill." The light and shadows flickered before my eyes. The Emperor stepped forward, gripped my chin, and pressed me against the wall. His voice tinged with suppressed anger as he said, "Do you truly wish for my death so much?" A sense of suffocation came over me. My lungs felt as if they were exploding with pain. Is this how I die? Then, in my final moments, I hazily saw, in the white hospital room. Mom sat by the bedside, her eyes swollen from crying. Dad shoved Mom aside, yanked out my 4 tube, and yelled, "What's the point of the 4? She's dead. Your daughter is dead. Stop wasting money." Blood flowed backward, spurting from the broken 4 tube and splattering all over Dad's face. Mom desperately shielded me. "She's not dead. My daughter isn't dead. She's still warm. Listen. Her heart is still beating." Dad grabbed Mom and started hitting her. "You crazy woman. The family is so poor we can't even put food on the table, and you're still borrowing money everywhere to support a living corpse." The nurse heard the noise, rushed into the ward, and chaos broke out. The cold air choked my lungs. I suddenly snapped back to reality, only to see the Emperor standing straight, his flushed hands trembling slightly. I grabbed his hand and placed it on my neck. "Quick, do me a favor, strangle me. If you strangle me, I can complete the mission and return to reality with 1 billion. The Emperor glared at me with reddened eyes, abruptly withdrawing his hand, and said angrily, "Empress, you really know how to humiliate me." With that, he flung his sleeve and left. As the Emperor turned around, a dagger was revealed at his waist, gleaming with a metallic sheen. Quick as lightning, I snatched the dagger with a clang, aimed it at my own chest, and thrust it down with all my might. The expected pain did not come. The dagger was knocked away by an invisible force, clattering to the ground with a clang. System alert. Player suicide detected. Mission time shortened to 1 month. Me, if I can't commit suicide, then how else can I die? System. The light and shadows flickered before my eyes. The Emperor bent down to pick up the dagger, scrutinized me, and said coldly, "What good would killing me do for you?" I said, Yes, exactly. I just want to kill you. Purely want to kill you. So, why don't you kill me instead?" The Emperor was furious, pressing the dagger against my neck, his heavy breath hot on my skin. "Do you think I don't dare?" I smiled faintly and said, "Either you die, or I perish. It's your call." The Emperor's crimson eyes lowered slightly as he withdrew the dagger and said slowly, "Wanwan, let's talk." I was taken aback. "I'm about to kill you. What more is there to talk about? Just kill me quickly. Don't waste your breath." The Emperor, looking dazed, slumped onto the stool with a thud, then slightly raised his head to look up at me and said, "Wanwan, I know you don't want to marry into this bitter, cold land, and you wish to kill me to return to Chu as a princess. But do you know, if I die and the Yu kingdom falls, how many common people will be displaced? How many lives will be lost in the chaos?" I nodded and asked, "Are you finished? Can you kill me now?" The Emperor, clutching the dagger at his waist, said tremblingly, "Wanwan, must only one of us live?" I said, Either kill me now, or wait for me to take your miserable life." The Emperor shuddered, turned around, and fled like a madman. "Guards, lock it down. Confine the Phoenix Palace." Holding the hairpin, I crawled out through the dog hole, begging everyone I met to kill me. "Do me a favor, kill me." The palace servants turned pale, kneeling all over the floor, each face filled with terror. I waved my hand. "I don't want your lives, I want you to kill me." The servants grew even more panicked. They kowtowed with a thump, their faces covered in blood. "Spare us, Your Majesty, spare us." I held my forehead and said, all right, I won't tease you anymore. Where is the Emperor?" The palace attendants pointed towards the Qianyang Hall and said with trembling voices, "Reporting to Your Majesty, the Emperor is in the morning court session." I clutched the hairpin and charged into the court. I must have looked utterly mad. with disheveled hair and bare feet, so much so that the courtiers, upon seeing me, recoiled in fear. I strode right up to the emperor, met his heavy gaze, and thrust the hairpin forward. "You damned emperor, I'm here to take your wretched life." The emperor did not dodge or evade. His eyes slightly reddened as he raised his hand to grip my wrist, angrily shouting, "What madness is this?" Behind us, the sound of swords being drawn echoed, and the guards shouted, "Protect His Majesty." I broke free, tightened my grip on the hairpin, and thrust it forward once more. The emperor yelled, "Stop!" At the same time, the sound of arrows being released echoed from behind. Whoosh, whoosh, exceptionally pleasant to the ear. My head was buzzing. In a daze, I saw the hospital room. Dad pushed Mom aside angrily and shouted, "Go, the debt collectors are at the door. Why are you still guarding her?" My mother stood in front of the hospital bed, desperately shielding me, and said with a trembling voice, "The relatives all said we can pay it back slowly." Zheng Yi stepped out from behind my father, stroking his stubbly beard, and said to my mom, "But I'm not your relative. The 200,000 yuan for the surgery, I paid for it. You see, my family isn't well off either, and I'm in a hurry to get the money to marry a wife. Just pay it back now." My mother glared fiercely at Zheng Yi. "Back then? The car accident happened all because you insisted on chasing after our Wanwan." Zheng Yi frowned, spreading his hands. "Auntie, you can't say it like that. Did I force her to run, or did I drive the car that hit her?" Mother was furious and looked at father. Father tried to smooth things over, saying, "How about it, Zheng Yi? Just make do with our Wanwan. Consider the 200,000 as the betrothal gift, and we won't force you to provide a house or a car." Mother snapped angrily, "What nonsense! How can Wanwan get married when she's this sick?" Sunlight streamed through the window, falling on my snow-white cheek. A crystal tear slid from the corner of my eye, glimmering faintly. Zheng Yi stared in a daze, a lecherous smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Light and shadow flickered before his eyes. Suddenly snapping back to reality, he met a pair of dark, profound eyes. The emperor roared, "Hold your arrows, my head is buzzing," and in a daze, the world becomes extremely quiet, so quiet that all I can hear is the breath against my neck and the emperor's strong heartbeat. A touch of warmth lands on my lips. Salty, it's the emperor's blood. Drip, drip, blood drips from the hairpin, falling onto my mouth, the tip of my nose, my face, carrying a faint salty, metallic scent. My hand stiffened. I let go of the hairpin, and stared blankly at the blood covering my palms. Just moments ago, the hairpin had pierced the emperor's chest, yet he seemed unaware, pressing me to the ground to dodge two arrows flying toward us. He slowly stood up and said weakly, "I'm fine." Someone shouted, "Protect His Majesty." Someone shouted, "The imperial physician." The guards rushed forward, their sharp blades pointed at me. The emperor pushed the swords aside and said weakly, "All of you, step back." "I am fine." Blood trickled down his chest, staining a large portion of his dragon robe. The guard, holding a knife, looked at me, then at the emperor, at a loss. The emperor angrily said, "Didn't you hear me? All of you, get out. She is my empress, not an assassin." With that, a mouthful of dark blood sprayed out. His figure slumped, and he collapsed onto the dragon throne, his bloodshot eyes fixed fiercely on the head of the imperial guards. The guards hastily withdrew, while the imperial physician, carrying a medicine chest, hurried forward, cutting open the dragon robe on the spot to treat the wound. The prime minister reported, "The Princess of Qing has arrived in the capital, declaring she will marry no one but you." How should we respond? The emperor's shoulders trembled, and as he raised a hand to point at the prime minister, he spat out another mouthful of blood. I spoke with great audacity, "With me in the harem, one is enough. As for that princess from Qing, tell her to get lost." The prime minister trembled with rage. This is a matter of diplomatic relations between two nations, a royal marriage alliance. It cannot be refused. I stood with my hands on my hips, insisting, "We just won't marry her." What can they do? If they want to marry her, they'll have to step over my dead body. The emperor weakly raised his hand and said, "All matters, let the empress decide." With that, his vision went black, and he fell into a deep slumber. The emperor collapsed, the court officials were thrown into chaos, someone banged their head against a pillar, crying out, A woman has brought ruin to the nation. Heaven is determined to destroy our great you. This old minister has failed the late emperor and must die to prove my loyalty." With that, he strode toward the pillar, making a show of intending to crash into it. The ministers stopped him, tearfully pleading, "Prime Minister, you mustn't," I advised. "Prime Minister, please calm your anger. Whatever you have to say, speak it properly. There's no need for tears, tantrums, and threatening to crash into walls." The Prime Minister snorted, flicked his sleeve, glared at me, and said with a trembling voice, "What is there for an old man like me to say to a woman? The great you will surely be ruined by you." With that, he broke free from the restraints of the crowd and strode swiftly toward the pillar. I hurriedly stopped the Chancellor and said, "Don't. If someone must die, it shouldn't be you. You should kill me instead and restore order to the court." The Chancellor froze in surprise. I summoned the guards, drew my sword, and amid the fearful gazes of the onlookers, placed the sword in the Chancellor's hand, saying earnestly, "Kill me, and restore order to the court." The Prime Minister trembled violently. Suddenly, he shrank down, thud kneeling on the ground, clunk clunk kowtowing, and said in a trembling voice, "This old minister is utterly loyal to the royal family, without a trace of disloyalty. My offense against Her Majesty in the hall just now was sheer folly. Her Majesty may punish this old minister in any way. I only beg for mercy for my family." I helped the Prime Minister to his feet. "Stop. No more kowtowing. You're not at fault. And what's this about your whole family? Why are you asking for my mercy?" the Prime Minister said with a trembling voice. "Assassinating the Empress is a crime punishable by the extermination of 9 generations, isn't it?" Suddenly it dawned on me, and I declared loudly, "The killing today is pardoned." With that, I placed the long sword back into the Prime Minister's hand. The Prime Minister trembled. "Your servant has no intention of rebellion." As he spoke, he raised the sword to his own neck, about to cut it, and said with a trembling voice, "Your servant will atone with death, begging your Majesty to spare my family." With that, tears streamed down his face, a truly tragic sight. I quickly snatched the sword, hid it behind my back, and tried to smooth things over, saying, all right, just kidding. Look how scared you are. Does anyone have anything else? If not, you may all leave." The Prime Minister trembled and said, "Your Majesty, I have something to report." I said, "Speak." The Prime Minister said, "The eastern city is flooded with tens of thousands of displaced people. They are now heading to the capital. How should we accommodate them?" I frowned. "Are you insane? Accommodate them? Drive them out of the city?" The court officials murmured in discussion. "No, absolutely not. Without the support of the people, how can a nation stand?" The Prime Minister flushed with anger. "Nonsense. This is sheer nonsense." I placed the sword in the Prime Minister's hand and said, "Now I am acting in charge of the court. And what I say goes. Want to resettle the refugees, unless you step over my dead body." The Prime Minister's hands trembled violently, his lips quivering, unable to utter a single word. I reminded him, "Kill me today, truly, and you will be pardoned." The Prime Minister froze for a moment, then suddenly fell to his knees with a thud. "Your Majesty, the Empress is wise. Driving away the refugees is indeed the best strategy." "I am utterly convinced." I scratched my head. "What do you mean?" The Prime Minister said excitedly, "Where there are refugees, there will be plague. Last year, the city of Yu suffered a flood, and refugees were relocated to Nan County, which led to a rampant plague throughout the entire county, leaving no survivors. Her Majesty said that the sick refugees should be driven out and not allowed into the city. Truly a brilliant strategy." We questioned Her Majesty, a mere woman, but it was truly our own ignorance showing. I facepalmed. The Ministry of Revenue stepped forward and said, "To settle these refugees outside the city will require a great deal of silver. The National Treasury has been in deficit for the past 2 years, and there is little left. What are we to do?" I asked. "How much is left in the National Treasury?" The Ministry of Revenue said, 5,000 taels of silver. I said, "That's all. It seems that's not enough. In that case, while we still have some money left, let's buy some good food and drinks, hold a palace banquet, have a good meal together, and then disband." The Ministry of Revenue blinked. What do you mean by disband?" I said, "Everyone, disperse. We're all so poor. What's the point of attending court? Go back to your homes. Each to their own mothers. The court officials were so angry they stomped their feet. The Minister of Revenue fumed, outrageous. I placed the sword in the Minister of Revenue's hand and said, either do it this way, or kill me. The Minister of Revenue's hand trembled as he gripped the sword. Suddenly, he knelt with a thump and cried out, I am so foolish, Your Highness, I nearly misunderstood you, and almost made a grave mistake. I helped the Minister of Revenue to his feet and said, No, you are not wrong, it is I, a woman of little talent and virtue, who has brought chaos to the court. Use this sword to purge the court and kill me. The court officials murmured in discussion. Only the Prime Minister stamped his foot in urgency, shouting, Silence, silence. The Minister of Revenue turned pale and trembled all over, then turned and yelled at the crowd, You've all misunderstood Her Majesty. Her Majesty's plan is truly a brilliant strategy. I was utterly confused and frowned, asking, What does that mean? The Ministry of Revenue explained, Her Majesty means to host a palace banquet with 5,000 taels, inviting the ladies of the noble households to donate silver and resolve the urgent crisis. I waved my hands repeatedly, No, that's not what I meant, but my voice was drowned out by the thunderous sound of kowtowing. The courtiers knelt in unison, Your Majesty is wise, we are utterly convinced. I was so anxious I kept pacing in circles. He said helplessly, All of you, rise. After the court session ended, I asked the eunuch, among the Empress consorts, Is there anyone who is particularly ruthless? The eunuch shook his head. No. I asked again, What about the jealous ones? The eunuch shook his head again. There aren't any, I said. Then just take me to see any of the consorts. The eunuch said, The Emperor doesn't have any consorts. I rubbed my forehead, not a single one. The eunuch said, I heard the Princess of Qing has entered the city. She came for a marriage alliance, but you just rejected her. I said, Take me to see her first. The eunuch waved his hands repeatedly. Your Majesty, think twice. The people of Qing are skilled in horseback riding and archery, and Qing Yuna has been practicing with swords and spears since childhood. She has a very fiery temper. I smiled and said, Then I must meet her even more elegant in. I kicked the door open with a bang, and found myself staring wide-eyed at Qing Yuna, who was in bed with a man. The two of them scrambled to adjust their clothes in a fluster. I entered the room, closed the door, sat down on the tea table, and asked, So you're Qing Yuna? Qing Yuna forced herself to stay calm. So what if I am? I smiled faintly. I've caught you in the act of your affair, haven't I? Shouldn't you silence me to keep it secret? Qing Yuna frowned, scrutinizing me. Tell me. What exactly do you want? I said, waiting for you to silence the witness. Qing Yuna angrily said, How dare you? As she spoke, she raised her hand to take the sword. Li Xian, wrapped in a blanket, scrambled up and pressed down on Qing Yuna's hand, saying, Be careful, it might be a trap. I spread my hands and said, Don't worry, it's not a trap. Li Xian said, There are 30 guards downstairs, each one a top-tier expert. You subdued them without a sound and came upstairs just to die. Qing Yuna held her knife and stepped closer, asking, Speak, who exactly are you? I said, No one special. As for the guards downstairs, they were all knocked out with knockout drugs, nothing impressive. Li Xian said, Should we tie her up first and interrogate her slowly under torture? My face turned pale, and I urged, Just kill them to silence them. No need to make it so complicated, really. Qing Yuna frowned, suddenly thrusting her sword forward. Then I grant you death. The sound of the sword cutting through the air was exceptionally pleasing to the ear. The next second, with a clang, the sword was knocked down by something. Immediately after, the door burst open with a bang. A team of guards rushed into the room, surrounding us completely. The Emperor wheeled forward in his chair, grabbing me and checking me over from head to toe, asking, Wanwan, are you hurt? With his movements, a faint, salty, fishy scent began to permeate the air, so close, I could see that the black robe on his chest was a shade darker, the color of blood spreading. I asked, Are you okay? The Emperor raised his hand to cover his chest and collapsed into my arms with a thud. The imperial physician hurried forward, treating the injuries while muttering, Oh dear, I already said you shouldn't move around. You need to rest quietly. As soon as he heard Her Highness had left the palace, he rushed over in a frantic hurry. And no one could hold him back. He insisted he was worried about Her Highness's safety and had to come in person. The corner of my mouth twitched. Thank you so much. The guards held Qing Yuna and asked, Your Highness, how should we deal with this? I looked around. Li Xian was not found. Perhaps he ran away, I said. It's a misunderstanding. Let him go. Everyone was taken aback, I explained. I enjoy watching martial arts performances and came specifically to see Qing Yuna's show. It's all a misunderstanding. Nothing happened. Let him go. Qing Yuna stared straight at me and said sullenly, Your Majesty has such refined taste. I said, I'll dance another piece for you when I get the chance. It was truly spectacular. The group returned to the palace. The Emperor kept a tight grip on my hand, refusing to let me leave. I had no choice but to place Qing Yuna in the Suyun Palace, right next to my own bedchamber. Such a close distance made it convenient for her to carry out her little schemes, like attempting an assassination at night while I was asleep. Evening. The Emperor was sound asleep. I pried his fingers open one by one and slipped away to the Fengyi Palace. The gate is still locked. Peeking through the crack, it's quiet inside. I slapped my forehead. Oh no, I forgot that Fengyi Palace is still under lockdown. Suddenly, the light and shadows in the courtyard shifted. Looking closely, I saw someone crouching in the tree, waiting for me to return. I didn't dare alert the enemy. I bent down and crawled back through the dog hole, walking cautiously under the tree. A faint snoring sound came from above. I cleared my throat softly twice. The snoring continued. Still quite even. I looked up and saw Qing Yuna, holding her sword, crouched on a tree branch, her eyes peacefully closed. I reminded, Hey, who are you waiting for here? Qing Yuna shuddered, suddenly opened her eyes, and stared at me blankly, her hand pressed on the sword, but she made no further move. I reminded, Are you here to kill me, to silence me? Then hurry up. Qing Yuna turned pale and waved her hands repeatedly, saying, No, not at all. I was just admiring the moon here. Look. The moonlight is so beautiful, I asked, admiring the moon, in my courtyard. Qing Yuna laughed awkwardly. Ah, really? I thought this was Suyun Palace. Oh dear. I must have been half asleep and ended up in the wrong place. I said, No need to pretend. Just do whatever you came to do. No need to hide it. Huh. Pretend what? I don't know, Your Majesty, Qing Yuna said, jumping down from the big tree and bowing in salute. I take my leave. With that, she turned and ran toward the courtyard wall. I grabbed Qing Yuna's arm and said, Don't run away. You're dressed in black and carrying a sword. You must be here to assassinate me. Now that there's no one around, it's the perfect opportunity. Qing Yuna froze. Her hand moved to the hilt of her long sword. The long sword was drawn with a clatter. It was placed against my neck, through the clear night. Qing Yuna stared at me and asked, Are you that eager to die? I nodded. Yes, yes, yes. I want to die. At this moment, Li Xian crawled out of the dog hole and whispered, I've checked. No ambush, just her alone. Qing Yuna frowned, lost in thought. Li Xian raised his hand, making a throat-slitting gesture, and asked in a low voice, Shall we proceed as planned? Qing Yuna shook her head and said, No. I feel like this is all too smooth. Something's fishy. We must have overlooked something. I said, Don't worry. There's no trick. I just want to die. Simply want to die. Li Xian said, I think so too. It's too smooth. The light and shadows flickered before my eyes, and I smelled something, my consciousness gradually fading. When I came to, I was already in bed. Li Xian turned his back to me, took off his night suit, revealing his firm muscles, and glared at me over his shoulder. I struggled to get up, my limbs weak, stumbling several times before barely managing to sit up, and said weakly, What are you going to do? Li Xian grabbed my ankle, dragged me over in one swift motion, and straddled me. His heavy breathing sprayed against my neck. Li Xian chuckled lightly. Why? To tarnish your reputation, of course, and pull you down from the throne of Empress, I said angrily. If you want that position, just kill me. Why go to such lengths to humiliate me? Li Xian said slowly. Kill you? That would leave too obvious a trace. If it were discovered, it might bring trouble to our princess, and that wouldn't be good, I said urgently. Then if you tarnish me, aren't you afraid of being found out? Li Xian gave a contemptuous smile. There are only the two of us here. Do you think the Emperor will still believe you after he opens the door and sees us in the same bed? I grabbed the hairpin from my bosom and thrust it fiercely toward Li Xian's waist. With a dull thud, warm blood splattered all over my face. Li Xian stumbled back, clutching his abdomen, gritting his teeth. "You crazy woman, aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" Blood gushed from between his fingers, soaking the bedsheet. I propped myself up and advised, "Now, the only way left for you is to kill me. Hurry up, if the Emperor comes later, there won't be any chance." Faint footsteps could be heard outside the door. I urged, "Quick, there's not much time left." Li Xian's eyes were bloodshot, glaring at me fiercely as his trembling hand pulled out the hairpin, snarling, "I'll kill you." With that, he gripped the hairpin with both hands and stabbed it fiercely toward my chest. I didn't move a muscle, afraid that if he missed, I wouldn't die. But the next second, a sword flew out from the side, clanging as it knocked the hairpin away. Immediately after, 7 or 8 guards rushed into the room and restrained Li Xian. The Emperor wheeled his chair over to me and asked with concern, "Are you hurt?" I shook my head and said, "I'm not hurt." The Emperor lifted the quilt uneasily. "What about the legs and the feet? Were they crushed?" I said, "No." The Emperor slowly lowered the quilt and turned to glare at Qing Yuna. "Is this what you meant by the Empress being impure?" Qing Yuna dropped to her knees with a thud, waving her hands frantically. "I didn't know. I just saw a man sneaking into the Phoenix Palace and thought it was an affair." The Emperor angrily said, "Slap her face." The eunuch stepped forward and slapped her face with a smack, smack. Qing Yuna's cheeks instantly turned red and swollen. The Emperor continued, "Do you admit your mistake?" Qing Yuna trembled and said, "I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have doubted the Empress." The Emperor's voice grew even colder. "Slap your face." 2 more slaps landed with a sharp smack, smack. Qing Yuna was completely dazed by the beating, stammering as she spoke, "Wrong. I was wrong for." Qing Yuna lowered her head, her peripheral vision glaring at Li Xian, who was pinned to the ground. Wasn't it agreed to frame him with a false charge? How did it turn into an assassination attempt right in front of the Emperor? The Emperor said in a trembling voice, "Your fault lies in knowing the Empress was in danger, yet not warning her on the spot, and instead coming over to make me watch this farce." Qing Yuna kowtowed deeply, trembling with fear. "Your servant knows her mistake." I smoothed things over, saying, "It's not Qing Yuna's fault. It's a personal grudge between me and Li Xian." The Emperor raised his eyes and glared at me, his tone unfriendly. "Oh, you and him, a grudge." I rolled out of bed and said to the guards, "Let him go. Let us settle our grudge ourselves." The guards looked to the Emperor for permission, and only then did they release him. Freed from the guards' restraint, Li Xian slumped to the ground, glaring at me with a stiff neck, his face deathly pale. With a clang, I drew a sword and threw it before Li Xian, saying, "Didn't you want to duel? Come on, let's have one last match." Li Xian picked up the sword, trembling as he rose to his feet, staring at me in a daze. I drew another sword and said, "I'm going to strike. Get ready." With that, the long sword thrust straight toward Li Xian. The Emperor shouted, "Be careful," I said, "It's fine. Don't worry about me." Li Xian stood upright, raised his long sword, and drew it across his own neck in a backhanded motion, splattering blood all over my face. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Wasn't he supposed to take that sword and kill me? Why did he commit suicide? A farce ended with Li Xian's suicide. Qing Yuna was demoted to the cold palace. The Emperor took me to the Hall of Mental Cultivation to continue serving him. He was so ill he couldn't even stand up, and in truth, couldn't perform marital duties either. He kept me close mainly because he feared I might have another accident. In the Emperor's words, it was, "My heart grows restless the moment I open my eyes and don't see you, afraid that something might happen to you. The imperial physician says it's a matter of the heart." I muttered, "I do have a way to cure His Majesty's heart ailment." The Emperor asked, "What way?" I said, "Just kill me." The Emperor's face turned pale. I advised, "Your Majesty's worry is simply the fear that something might happen to me. If I die, nothing will ever happen to me again, and there will be nothing left to worry about." The Emperor stared straight at me, his eyes growing redder, and said in a low voice, "Wanwan, don't talk nonsense." With that, he buried his head in my arms, holding me tightly, and fell asleep. I really don't know how the Emperor managed to sleep while holding me so tightly. Anyway, I didn't fall asleep. Pushing him away only made him hold on tighter. The the tender neck, nestled so close to me. I couldn't help but want to squeeze it. Above the neck, the veins pulsed rhythmically, so close that I could see every beat of the pulse, its rhythm matching the beat of my own heart. Plop, plop. Listening to it, I fell asleep and even had a dream. In the dream, I lay quietly in the hospital room. Zhengyi smirked lewdly, pulled out my 4-tube, climbed onto the hospital bed, and tore at my clothes. Mom rushed into the ward and screamed, "Zhengyi, what are you doing?" Zhengyi said coldly, "What am I doing? Of course, she's pregnant." Mom stepped forward to pull Zhengyi away, but he shoved her aside. She slammed into the wall with a thud and shouted angrily, "Zhengyi, you're shameless." Zhengyi straightened his clothes and said with a smile, "Shameless? I spent 200,000 to marry her, so I must get something out of it, right? She can't do anything now. The only value of her being alive is to bear children, isn't it?" Upon hearing this, her mother's eyes turned red, and she grabbed a broom to hit him. Get out of here." Zhengyi hurriedly ran out the door, throwing back a threat before leaving. "I'll give you 7 days, either pay back the money or hand over your daughter." Suddenly, her eyes snapped open. She met a pair of dark, deep eyes. The emperor held my face, looking worried. "Wanwan, what's wrong? Why have you been talking in your sleep?" I pushed the emperor away and made up an excuse. "It's nothing, just a bad dream." The emperor grabbed my hand and asked, "What did you dream about?" I got out of bed and put on my shoes, saying, "I forgot." The emperor said, "You keep calling my childhood name, Gun. I just can't figure out how I became your nightmare." General Li came to report, urgently saying, "Your Majesty, the refugees have rebelled. They're attacking everyone they see. Like they've gone mad." Hearing this, my eyes lit up. "Where? Take me there at once." The emperor held me back, saying, "No need, it's just a few refugees, not worth our concern." General Li said urgently, "Not just a few, but 20 to 30,000, and the numbers are still growing. With a continuous stream of refugees joining, we only have 8,000 soldiers. I'm afraid we can't control this." I was startled and asked, "Do they bite people?" General Li said, "No." I asked again, "Can they speak?" General Li said, "Not only can they speak, but they can also roar." Tens of thousands of them roared together, demanding that we open the city gates. The sound was so loud it made our ears ring. I breathed a sigh of relief. Good. As long as it's not zombies." The emperor scratched his head. "What zombies?" I said. "Don't worry, as long as I'm here, the capital will never fall." General Li, quickly, take me to meet them. General Li, having seen my methods in court yesterday, quickly bowed and led the way. Upon hearing I intended to go to the front lines. The emperor, however, grabbed my hand. "Wanwan, it's dangerous, don't go." I pried his fingers off one by one. "Be good, wait here for me to return." The emperor pouted, then grabbed the hem of my skirt, turning to the eunuch and saying, "Quick, help me change, get the wheelchair ready." I tugged at the hem of my skirt and hurried away, standing on the city wall. I looked out beyond the gates and saw a sea of dark heads stretching endlessly into the distance. The crimson sun slowly rose, looking from afar like a ripe tomato. The refugees raised their clubs and shouted, "Open the gates." The sound was vast and mighty. I said, "Lower the ramp, I'll go and talk." Li Jiang advised, "You mustn't, those we sent over never came back, and now we don't even know if they're alive or dead." I said, "So, lower the ladder." General Li was taken aback, brought the ladder, lowered it to the base of the city wall, and said in a trembling voice, "Then this subject will accompany your highness on this journey." I climbed down the ladder and commanded, "You are not to follow, I will go alone." General Li looked troubled. "But, your highness," I said sternly, "are my words no longer effective?" General Li lowered his head, cupped his hands in farewell, and when he looked at me again, his eyes were full of admiration. "Take care, your majesty." The refugees crowded around, shouting at me, "Open the city gates." I smiled faintly. "Want to open the city gates, unless you step over my dead body." The refugees were taken aback, clearly not expecting a woman to have such courage. I explained, "Kill me, and perhaps the city gates will open." The refugees scratched their heads in confusion. Some called me crazy, while others said I was insane. In the end, they escorted me, walking and walking, taking me to see their leader, inside the tent. I pointed at Qing Yuna and asked, "Is this your boss?" No one responded to me. Looking back, there was nothing behind me. Inside the tent, there was only me and Qing Yuna wrapped in a blanket. The quilt wriggled a couple of times. A rough-looking man tugged at the quilt, sat up, and stared at me wide-eyed. Qing Yuna said, "The last one died, so we got a replacement. Don't make a fuss." I laughed. "Ha ha, what a coincidence, I've caught you in the act again. Should we take advantage of there being no one around and silence the witness?" Qing Yuna straightened her clothes, stood up to pour tea, and asked me, "Do you know what we were doing?" I asked, "Do you want me to know?" Qing Yuna picked up the tea bowl, handed it to me, and said, "You don't know, you haven't seen it yet, you know. The matter of the 2 Li Xians must not be spread around." I nodded, took the offered tea, and drank it all in one gulp, gasping from the heat. Apart from the heat, there was nothing unusual, so I handed the empty bowl to Qing Yuna and said, "I have a high tolerance for drugs. 1 bowl won't knock me out. How about another?" Qing Yuna laughed heartily. "You really know how to joke," I asked. "Could it be that you didn't put any drug in it?" Qing Yuna was taken aback. "Why add poison?" I reminded her. "To silence the witness." Qing Yuna said, "No need to pretend, we're all on the same side." Under my bewildered gaze, Qing Yuna explained, "I am the princess of Qing Kingdom. He is a spy from Qing Kingdom. We are all on the same side." I waved my hands repeatedly. "No, we are not on the same side." Qing Yuna patted the rough man's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, Li Xian is my trusted confidant. He is reliable," I said. But I'm not one of you. I don't even know you." Qing Yuna offered another bowl of tea and said, "It was my fault earlier. You were protecting me, and I didn't realize it. You're also a spy, and I even thought of harming you." I took the tea and drank it all in one gulp. My stomach feels so bloated. I really want to die in my heart, but my body won't let me. Qing Yuna said, "Drink this bowl of tea, and consider it as forgiving me. From now on, the 3 of us will work together on things." I face-palmed. Qing Yuna continued, "Our 300 spies originally planned to blend in with the refugees and enter the capital with them. Little did we expect that the old emperor would refuse to open the city gates." I said, "It was I who ordered the gates not to be opened. I beg for your punishment, princess." Qing Yuna clapped her hands and said, "Excellent, if we enter the city, 300 spies won't cause much trouble. But if we don't, these tens of thousands of refugees will all be our allies." I asked, "So what's our next move?" Qing Yuna said, "We sneak back into the palace, seize the emperor, and then, working from the inside and out, open the city gates." The sound of fighting echoed from ahead. Opening the door, I saw a vast army of war horses charging forward, soldiers wielding swords and spears. Their eyes bloodshot with battle fury, the refugees fled in disarray. Qing Yuna turned pale, her voice trembling as she said, "How could this be? The emperor has always cared for his people. How could he resort to such slaughter?" Soon, she would know the answer. 2 teams of soldiers rushed forward, surrounding the earthen house in a tight circle. The emperor pushed the wheelchair forward in a panic, took my hand, and checked me over from head to toe. "Wanwan, are you all right?" I shook my head and said, "It's nothing." Looking back, I couldn't see Qing Yuna or the rough man. The quilt was bulging, probably because they were hiding inside. I said to the soldiers, "Everyone, please leave. I have something to say to the emperor." The soldiers quickly left, closing the door behind them. The room instantly darkened. In the dim light, the emperor looked up at me and asked, "Wanwan, what did you want to say?" The next moment, his dark eyes widened abruptly, reflecting the gleaming white blade of a long sword. Now, I stepped forward, shielding the emperor with my body. A piercing pain shot through my back. A long sword had pierced my chest. In a daze, the emperor cried out, "Wanwan." His cry was heart-wrenching. I collapsed into the emperor's embrace, closed my eyes, and lost consciousness. When he opened his eyes again, the beaded curtain and jade screen swayed gently. The emperor paused his hand from wiping my sweat and exclaimed with delight, "Wanwan, you're awake." My head was buzzing, trying to prop myself up. A sharp pain shot through my chest and abdomen. The emperor's eyes were slightly red, at a loss. "Wanwan, don't move recklessly. The imperial physician said you need to rest quietly." I asked, "Why didn't I die?" The emperor said, "I'm sorry, it's my fault. I didn't protect you well. The imperial physician said the sword was just a hair's breadth away from piercing your heart. Saying this, he took my hand and placed it on his own face. If it hurts, then hit me. When I was still a hostage, you often hit me. Saying my face was chubby and felt good to hit, I withdrew my hand. The Emperor's eyes reddened even more, and he said anxiously, "How can I not be angry? Tell me, I'll agree to anything." I said calmly, "Kill me." The Emperor turned around, took a sword, placed it in my hand, and pointed the tip at his own chest, saying in a deep voice, "If you want to kill me, go ahead. After all, you saved this life." I pondered for a moment, sighed, and said, "All right, I was just joking. By the way, where is Qingyuna?" The Emperor said, "Locked up in the imperial prison." Urged by the eunuch, the Emperor went to court in a wheelchair. I held the sword and wheeled my chair into the forbidden prison. The prison was empty, with only Qingyuna inside. Her dress was disheveled, her hair a mess, and she looked utterly haggard. Seeing me, she widened her eyes and demanded sharply, "Why block the arrow?" Without a word, I took the key, rattled it into the lock, pushed open the cell door, and handed over the long sword. Qingyuna was taken aback and instinctively took the long sword. I said, "Kill me." Qingyuna drew the long sword and said, "Now is not the time to assign blame, let's talk after we escape." I said, "Stop joking, I'm not here to break you out of prison." Qingyuna slapped her forehead. "Oh, I get it, you're here as a hostage, right?" I waved my hand. "No. Not really," but my voice was drowned out by the thump, thump, thump of footsteps. A team of guards rushed in, shouting, "Protect Her Highness." Qingyuna pressed her sword against my neck and shouted, "Don't move, everyone, back off." The guards instantly halted in their tracks. I yelled, "Don't stop, seize her, even if I die. You must capture her. Do you hear me?" The guards looked at each other, then one by one, they knelt down with a thud. General Li said in a trembling voice, "I cannot comply with your request." Qingyuna curled her lips into a smile and whispered to me, "Not bad acting. No wonder you managed to stay by the Emperor's side undercover for so long." General Li said, "Whatever you ask for, we can provide it. Please do not harm Her Highness, otherwise, I will lead my troops to take your head." Qingyuna said, "I want a carriage and some provisions, and don't even think about poisoning anything. I'll have Her Highness taste all the food first." General Li nodded repeatedly. "Good, good, good. As long as Her Majesty is not harmed, anything can be discussed." With that, he turned around to make preparations. I shouted at his retreating figure, "Go ahead and poison it, don't worry about me." But my voice was drowned out by the Emperor's wails. The Emperor wheeled his chair in, leading a group of eunuchs, and shouted, "Stop, don't harm my Wanwan." Qingyuna hid behind my wheelchair, tightening her grip on the long sword, and yelled, "Halt. Don't come any closer, take one more step, and I'll strike." The Emperor's hand on the wheelchair paused, and he waved repeatedly, "No, don't harm her, we can talk." Qingyuna asked, "Talk about what?" The Emperor said in a deep voice, "Take me in exchange for her." Qingyuna frowned. "No deal." The Emperor asked, "As the ruler of a nation, what is wrong with me changing the Empress?" Qingyuna said warily, "Don't try any tricks, it's just not allowed." The Emperor slowly stood up, then knelt with a thump, his voice trembling, "I beg you, Wanwan's injuries are too severe, she can't withstand any more strain." Qingyuna smiled and whispered in my ear, "The Emperor truly has deep feelings for you, using you to exchange for the Emperor, and then, holding the Son of Heaven to command the nobles. Just thinking about it is thrilling." I waved my hands repeatedly. "No way." Qingyuna's gaze sharpened. "Why not?" I made up an excuse, "It's a trap." Qingyuna thought for a moment and found it reasonable. What emperor would be so insane as to trade his own life for an empress? "So, the hostage is still me." Qingyuna pushed me into the carriage, lifted the curtain, and said, "You'd better escort me back to Qing Kingdom, otherwise, if I encounter any danger on the road, I'll definitely drag her down with me before I die." The sword remained pressed against my neck as he spoke. The Emperor's heart was breaking, his eyes reddening as he said in a trembling voice, don't worry, I will send more soldiers to escort you safely." Qingyuna nodded with satisfaction, let down the curtain, and the surrounding light dimmed. No one could see us now. Only then did she withdraw her long sword, rubbing her shoulder as she said, "Ah, it's so sore and achy. Help me massage it, I said in a deep voice. A scholar would rather die than be humiliated. Qing Yuna said, considering you saved me, I'll spare your life, help me rub it. My shoulder hurts. I turned my head. You might as well just sentence me to death. Qing Yuna was taken aback. Why are you so stubborn with that? She rubbed her own shoulder with a backhanded motion, her face full of resentment. The horse's hooves clip-clopped, and the carriage curtains swayed slightly, revealing the slightly hunched back of the coachman. Qing Yuna said, keep your voice down. The coachman isn't one of us. I nodded. Amham. The sound of horse hooves grew heavier, rumbling like thunder. Lifting the curtain and looking out, a vast army of war horses was chasing after us, stretching as far as the eye could see. General Li, leading the way, waved to me and said, Your Highness, do not fear, we vow to protect you with our lives. The curtain of the nearby carriage was drawn aside, and the Emperor squeezed his head out, waving frantically at me. Wanwan, don't be afraid, I'm here for you. As the carriage passed through Izhou, the Emperor gave the order, and all the troops of Izhou joined the procession, swelling the number of soldiers to 20,000, passing through Izhou. The number increased to 30,000, passing through Shanju. The price has risen to 40,000. This formation doesn't look like an escort for us, more like heading into battle. Qing Yuna was so frightened that her face turned deathly pale, shouting, Step back, all of you, step back. The Emperor shouted, Release Wanwan, and we will retreat. Qing Yuna shouted, Step back, and I'll release Wanwan. The negotiation ended in failure. One refused to step back first. One refused to release me first. The carriage traveled south for 3 full days and nights, and Qing Yuna dared not close her eyes for a moment. On the 4th day, Qing Yuna finally couldn't hold on any longer, burying her head in my chest and falling into a deep sleep. I gave a light cough, and the coachman rushed into the carriage, restraining Qing Yuna and tying her up tightly. Qing Yuna was too exhausted to even open her eyes, mumbling indistinctly, Don't move, you're hurting me. The Emperor, with reddened eyes, wheeled his chair forward, weeping with joy. Wanwan, you're still alive, it's wonderful. Qing Yuna suddenly woke up, struggling to sit up, and screamed, Save me, save me. The Emperor, leaning on his crutch, stood up, drew his long sword, and said through gritted teeth, Die. I shouted. Don't, stop, don't kill her, I said, standing up and reaching out to block the Emperor. With my movement, a sharp pain shot through my chest. System notification. Player suicide detected. Player's body has been restored. Mission time reduced to 24 hours. My inner thoughts. What? I didn't commit suicide. The system said, Just now, you almost died. With a clang, the Emperor threw down his long sword, staggered forward, and made a move to support me. Wanwan, sit down quickly, don't move around. I stood straight and said, My injuries have all healed, don't worry about me. Instead, the Emperor, walking too hastily, tripped over his crutch with his lame leg and fell to the ground with a thud, requiring me to help him up. The imperial physician hurried forward to tend to the Emperor's reopened wound. The Emperor grimaced in pain, staring at me intently, and asked, Are you really okay? I hopped a couple of times and said, See, I'm fine, my healing ability is really strong. The Emperor said, Still, take it slow, if the wound reopens, it'll hurt a lot. I said, Don't worry, I know my own body best. As we spoke, Qing Yuna kept giving me meaningful glances. I glanced at the Emperor, who was still being treated with medicine, then walked over to Qing Yuna with my sword and whispered, I'm sorry, it's my fault you're in this. With that, I threw the long sword in front of her. Pick it up and kill me. Qing Yuna's hands were bound in front of her. She could take the sword, and she could kill me. But Qing Yuna didn't take the sword, shaking her head at me and saying, Don't worry. I don't suspect you. Find another chance to let me secretly capture you, and I'll count it as a great merit for you later. I facepalmed. The Emperor shouted, Quick, the sword. Pick up the sword. Don't let Qing Yuna snatch it. I bent down to pick up the sword and turned to walk toward the Emperor's side. The Emperor asked, By the way, earlier, why didn't you let me kill Qing Yuna? I thought you wanted to kill her yourself. I thought for a moment and said, Keep her. She will be of great use. The Emperor asked, What use? I pointed to the city wall 10 miles away and asked, What is that place? The Emperor said, Qing Kingdom. I asked again, how many troops do we have behind us? The Emperor said, 60,000. I said, 60,000 troops, almost at Qing Kingdom. Then let's fight. The Emperor nodded. Fine, then let's fight. By the way, what does Qing Yuna have to do with this fight, if we're about to break all ties? Why can't we just kill Qing Yuna? I said, keep her alive, she'll be of great use. I commanded the soldiers to cut down a few large trees and make a wide wooden stretcher. I tied Qing Yuna securely to the center of the stretcher and said, carry her. Let's go. The Emperor was so delighted that he clapped his hands. Brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? Placing her at the front of the formation will greatly boost morale. I thought for a moment and said, all of you wait here. I'll take Qing Yuna and go negotiate. The Emperor slapped his forehead. Oh right. We can still negotiate. How come I didn't think of that? But, are you going alone? That doesn't seem wise. I said, negotiation. It has to be done alone. Don't worry. I'll bring Qing Yuna. I won't enter the city. I'll hide behind her stretcher. No one would dare to mess with us. The Emperor said with concern, maybe I should go instead. I replied, no, you still need to oversee the overall situation. The Emperor added, I feel uneasy, like something bad is about to happen. Maybe none of us should go, let General Li go instead. I waved my hands repeatedly. No, General Li is a rough man and not good at negotiating. The Emperor really couldn't keep me. So he had no choice but to assign General Li to me, ordering him to protect me, and so, General Li drove the carriage with me inside, while 6 soldiers carrying a stretcher followed behind. The group traveled light, heading towards the kingdom of Qing 10 miles away. We arrived at the city gate. The soldiers propped up Qing Yuna's stretcher and placed it in front of the carriage. On top of the city wall, boughs were raised in unison, aimed directly at us. General Old Pan shouted, who goes there? I stepped down from the carriage, preparing to step forward and respond, but General Li stopped me. Your Majesty, don't move around, we're right behind the stretcher here, the arrows can't reach us. I pushed General Li away and said, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. After saying that, I walked a dozen steps away, putting distance between Qing Yuna and myself, then declared, I am the Empress of Yu. Qing Yuna attempted to assassinate the Emperor and is now sentenced to immediate execution. On the city wall, thousands of bows were drawn in an instant, creating a tense standoff. General Li said with a trembling voice, have you gone mad? I responded with a faint smile, not crazy. I just wanted to force them to shoot me, to save Qing Yuna, because that way, I could die. The scorching sun blazed, and Qing Yuna's lips were parched and cracked. She struggled and screamed, her voice hoarse. Save me, save me. As she spoke, blood seeped from her pale lips. On top of the city wall, Old Pan shouted, spare her, let's talk. The city gate opened a crack, and the envoy squeezed his plump body through, waving at us from a distance before lowering his head and charging over, his thick muscles jiggling with each step. As he approached, he cupped his hands in salute and said cautiously, my name is Ergo, Deputy General of the Army, here to negotiate on behalf of the Kingdom of Qing. General Li stepped in front of me, eyeing Ergo warily. Ergo stood at 6 feet tall, with a broad, bear-like build, not an easy man to take down. Ergo slowly set down his backpack, pulled out a wooden board, unfolded it, it was a tea table, then took out 2 folding chairs. Placing the smaller one on my side and the larger one on his own, General Li's frown deepened. What kind of trick is this? Ergo said. Heh, my butt is big, I need a wider seat. As he spoke, he handed over a bamboo tube. The princess is thirsty, go give her some water. General Li took a step back, eyeing Ergo warily. I snatched the bamboo tube and shoved it into General Li's hands. Go on, if you die of thirst, it won't be good for negotiations. General Li nodded, took the bamboo tube, and walked toward Qing Yuna. She was tied up high. It would take some time to get her down. Ergo took out 2 bamboo tubes again, handed one to me, and gestured for me to sit down. I took the bamboo tube, unscrewed the lid, and tilted my head back to gulp it all down in one go, drinking until I was hiccuping. Ergo looked at me with wide-eyed shock and asked, was it good? I closed my eyes to savor the taste and said, it's too bland. Did you forget to add the seasoning? Ergo laughed heartily and said, forgot to add sugar. We usually add it after opening the can. As he spoke, he pulled out a mini container, shook out 2 sugar cubes, and dropped them into his own water. I rolled my eyes and asked, "Did they really send you here just to negotiate?" Ergu slapped his forehead. "Oh, right. Let's get down to business. What will it take to release the princess?" I eyed his solid muscles, figuring he could take down 10 men without breaking a sweat, and said, "I want your head." Ergu scratched his head and said in a low voice, "My head? That's too cheap, isn't it? You should ask for the city behind me." Yinluo City is the largest and wealthiest city in the Qing Kingdom. Taking it would essentially mean taking the entire Qing Kingdom. I frowned at Ergu and said, "Then it's your head, plus 1 city." Ergu jumped up in a panic. No, my head isn't worth much. If you really need a head, you can take Old Pan's. He's the city defense general. Once he's gone, Yinluo City will surely surrender without a fight. My frown deepened. Ergu, is it? What exactly are you here for? Ergu paused for a moment, then said with a serious expression, "To negotiate." General Li stepped forward and, seeing my angry expression, drew his sword toward Ergu. Ergu jumped up in a panic, waving his hands repeatedly. Even in war, envoys are not to be killed. General Li then turned to me and asked, "How did the negotiation go?" Without a word, I snatched the sword from General Li's hand and made a move to thrust it at Ergu. Ergu was hopping mad. "I've already conceded this much. What more do you want?" While dodging my attacks, he yelled, repeating the outcome of the negotiation. Upon hearing this, General Li snatched the sword from my hand and advised, "Your Majesty, this outcome is already quite good. You have no idea. Capturing Yinluo City means seizing the lifeblood of the Qing Kingdom. They must have lost their minds to negotiate such a result." I reached out to snatch the sword, saying, "This is not the outcome I wanted." General Li, guarding his sword, said, "This outcome is truly remarkable." Ergu said, "Give me the time it takes for 1 incense stick to burn, and I'll take down the Grand General, then hand over Yinluo City to you." With that, he twisted his thick waist and plump buttocks, and thump, thump, thump ran back to the city. Half an incense stick later, on the city wall, the soldiers withdrew their bows and arrows, and thud knelt to the ground. Old Pan stood on high ground, waving the military flag, and shouted, "The eldest princess has been captured. Shall we rescue her?" The soldiers responded in unison, "Rescue." Old Pan shouted again, 60,000 enemy troops are at the city gates. Shall we defend Yinluo City?" The soldiers responded in unison, "Defend." The sound was vast and mighty. Merging with the distant rumble of thunder, General Li's face changed dramatically, and he said, "Quick, run. They must be coming to seize someone." I said, "You all go ahead. I'll stay here and guard." General Li paused in his movements and said urgently, "If your Majesty does not leave, how dare we go?" The next instant, Old Pan shouted. Old Pan sacrifices to the flag. His power knows no bounds. With that, he drew his long sword across his neck, blood spurting 3 feet high. Splattering onto the military flag, which fluttered in the wind, Old Pan fell straight down. The soldiers shouted in unison, "Charge!" The sound of footsteps rumbled like thunder. The city gate slowly opened. General Li said with a trembling voice, "Run, quickly." I stood straight and said, "I order you, in the name of the Empress, to take them and run. Don't worry about me." General Li's eyes reddened, and he suddenly bent down to pick me up. "Your Majesty, forgive my offense." With that, he tried to shove me into the carriage, but the next moment, Ergu stood in Old Pan's previous spot and shouted, "Halt!" The thunderous footsteps ceased, and the city gate slowly closed. Ergu shouted, "Old Pan is dead. Now, I am the commander. I order that Yinluo City surrender." General Li paused in his movements, set me down on the ground, and said in a trembling voice, "This subordinate was reckless. I beg your highness to punish me." As he spoke, he knelt with a thump. I steadied myself and looked toward the city. The city gate slowly opened. Ergu laid down his weapon and shouted from the city wall, "We welcome the Empress into the city." The soldiers inside the city all put down their weapons. Closely, each zombie had an invisible blood thread attached to it, all leading back to Qing Yuna at the center of the pool. Qing Yuna sat cross-legged, her blood-red finger pointing at us as she roared hoarsely, "Kill!" Ergu trembled and said, "It's true, it's really true. After the blood sacrifice, the Qing royal family can summon zombies. The zombies could not be killed by blades or extinguished by fire.
They bit one soldier after another, and those bitten would convulse twice before turning into zombies themselves, then start attacking us. The soldiers shouted and charged at the zombies, covering our escape. I asked the system, does being killed by a zombie count as death? The system said, yes. General Lee pushed me. Run. The Emperor pulled me over, carried me into the wheelchair, and shouted, General Lee, push me. The scenery before my eyes swayed. General Lee pushed us forward. Charging ahead with a thump, 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 I shouted, wait, stop. General Lee halted, released the wheelchair, and asked, Your Majesty, what's wrong? I jumped out of the wheelchair. The soldiers beside me shouted and charged forward, blocking the zombies. In just a few breaths, thousands were lost. The zombie line quickly closed in on us. The Emperor said urgently, whatever you have to say, can it wait? I want to run. As he spoke, he reached out to grab me. I stepped back to dodge and asked Ergo, how far can Qing Yuna control these zombies? Ergo said in a trembling voice, theoretically, there's no distance limit. I said, then where can we run to? Once she grows up, the entire world will fall. General Lee frowned. Ergo stomped his foot in frustration. The Emperor sighed. What should we do then? I said, I have a way. The Emperor asked, what way? I climbed onto the city wall, tied a simple lever with a wooden stick, sat on one end of the lever, and said to General Lee, quick, send me over. This lever can throw me up and send me over to Qing Yuna. The Emperor waved his hands repeatedly. Absolutely not. You can't beat them, I said firmly. No, I can beat them. The battle line had already retreated to the city wall, with countless zombies climbing up from below. Ergo, holding an iron fork, was taking them down one by one. But as soon as one was taken down, another would appear. And more zombies were climbing up. General Lee said, let me go. I said, no, only I can kill her. The Emperor took my hand and asked with tears in his eyes, Wanwan, how will you kill her? I know her weakness. It's too complicated to explain right now. The Emperor was still uneasy. Then let General Lee lead the charge, and you finish her off. I waved my hand. No need, there's no time. If you don't send me over now, we'll all die. 7 or 8 zombies advanced to the top of the city wall, forcing Ergo to retreat step by step. The Emperor finally nodded in agreement. You must come back alive. General Lee stepped on the other end of the lever, sending me skyward, hurling me toward Qing Yuna. Qing Yuna slowly looked up, staring at me in terror, raising her hand to command the zombies. In an instant, the zombies formed a human pyramid in the center of the pool, stacking higher and higher, with the topmost zombie extending its sharp claws, slicing through my skin. With a burning pain, my whole body convulsed involuntarily, and I collapsed weakly onto Qing Yuna. The system prompted, congratulations, player, you have been infected with the zombie virus. You will die in 3 seconds. Countdown, 3, 2, using my last ounce of strength, I pulled out the fire starter and placed it on my chest. The wind howled in my ears, and the fire starter on my chest emitted a faint glow. With a loud bang, I crashed into Qing Yuna's face and lost consciousness. Centered around us, a blinding flash of light exploded with a bang, spraying blood mist everywhere and scattering severed limbs across the sky. Thousands of zombies instantly fell to the ground, no longer moving. The Emperor looked toward the blood pool, exclaiming in shock, Wanwan, you really saved us. The soldiers lowered their weapons, staring in the direction of the blood pool, not daring to act rashly. The blood mist dissipated. In the center of the blood pool, it was empty, no blood, no trace of me, only scattered limbs. The Emperor cried out in despair, Wanwan. He rose from the wheelchair, staggering as he tried to come down to find me, but after just 2 steps, he collapsed to the ground, clutching his heavily bandaged leg, weeping and wailing in agony. I died. The fire starter touched the methane, and it exploded, killing me. The first time I saw the blood pool, I smelled the fermented scent of methane. Along with me, Qing Yuna was also blown to death. I ended this war. The soldiers bowed deeply toward the blood pool. The Emperor crawled into the pile of corpses, digging through the severed limbs, piecing me back together as I was in life, holding my pale face. He sobbed uncontrollably, Wanwan, we've won. Whatever reward you want, I will grant it. Tell me now. Zhengyi, wearing a large red flower, burst into the ward and grinned. The 7 days are up. Have you decided? Will you repay the debt or hand over your daughter to me? My mother shielded me on the hospital bed and said tearfully, Zhengyi, don't push us too far. The doctor said Wanwan shows signs of waking up. Give it a little more time, she will definitely wake up. My father shoved my mother aside and shouted angrily, wake up. Can't you tell the doctor was just comforting us? If she were going to wake up, She would have done so by now, Zheng Yi said. Even if you wake up, can you afford to repay that 200,000 betrothal gift? Wanwan is destined to be my woman. As he spoke, he stepped forward and pulled out my 4-tube. From now on, you'll recover at home. The hospital is too expensive, we can't afford it. Mom tried desperately to stop him, but Dad pinned her against the wall. I slowly opened my eyes, struggling to get up from the bed. Mom exclaimed, "She's awake. My daughter is awake." Everyone looked at me in shock. Zheng Yi laughed and said, "Awake? Hey, that's great. The betrothal gifts have already been accepted. No backing out now. Forget the car and house for now. Let's go get our marriage certificate first." I pushed his hand away and said angrily, 200,000 betrothal gift. Right, I'll pay you back. Zheng Yi was stunned. Pay back? With what? Don't think I don't know. Your family has no money and is buried in debt. I said, don't worry, I'll pay you back today. Zheng Yi said, today? If you can pay me back today, I'll stand on my head and eat shit. I nodded. Alright, just wait to eat shit then. After saying that, I turned to ask my mom, where's my phone? Zheng Yi mocked, I think you've slept too long and your brain isn't clear. All the major platforms know you're sick and won't lend you money. Mom fumbled in her pocket, pulled out my phone, and hesitantly handed it over. Taking the phone, I entered the password, after waking from an illness. I never had to go to work again. With 100 million in my pocket, I could eat and drink without a care, living freely. But my heart always felt hollow, the world in my dreams, I could never return to it. I wrote down my experiences and spent a fortune to make a movie, passing by the filming set. Amidst the interplay of light and shadow, I caught a fleeting glimpse of the Emperor. He looked up and saw me, momentarily stunned. The director yelled, "Cut, stop, don't zone out, he's not the Emperor, he's an actor." The director turned around, saw me, and introduced with a flattering smile, "This is Wanwan, our investor." The male lead rose from the dragon throne and smiled, "Hello." As he spoke, he extended his hand toward me. I'm certain he's not the Emperor. In the Emperor's eyes, there's always a gloom, no matter how he smiles. It's a gloom that can't be concealed. I stumbled away in a daze. The movie was soon released, followed by an overwhelming wave of skepticism. What woman could the Emperor not have? Why would he only dote on the female lead? The Emperor is so brainless. How did he even become the Emperor? Acting like a total fool, I put down my phone, feeling utterly disheartened, walking through the dimly lit alley. Suddenly, someone called out to me, "Wanwan." Looking back, amidst the interplay of light and shadow, the male lead ran toward me, his tone filled with emotion. "I remember now, my name is Gun Gun, the name you gave me. I've been a hostage since childhood, with no father's care, no mother's love. If it weren't for your protection, I would have died long ago." Staring at the gloom in his eyes, for a moment, I saw the Emperor. In that instant, the past and the present, film and reality, collided with a sudden intensity. Is film not, in its own way, another kind of life? The end.